What's up, YouTube people? 40K Sensei been here, and I know it's been about 3 weeks since my last upload, but I'm getting back on schedule now. I just started my spring semester of college, so I wanted to get situated, especially with the heavy course load that I have. But with that said, we're getting back on schedule. Now, this video is going to be addressing a comment left by someone on my last video, and if you want your comment addressed, just leave it below and I'll respond to it. If it requires a video, I'll make one just like this. If not, I'll just reply in the comments. But with that said, this is his comment. I'll throw it up on the screen. As a new player, I'd love to hear how someone more experienced tackles learning and developing a new army in 40k. From day one of opening your codex to figuring out how to play the strengths of your army and make full use of its potential. Being brand new to the game, I often find myself struggling what to focus on to help build a connection and understanding to my army. If I understood what key components of the game to focus on first, it might save people like me some time and help assure us that we are prioritizing what's important when learning a new faction. That is a great question. A lot of smaller questions inside of there, but I'll address a lot of things in future videos, such as how to actually get into Warhammer. Like, oh, I've heard of this game, my friend plays, I know a guy or gal that plays, how do I get into it? I'll make that video coming soon. Or how do I pick the army? There's like 30 armies to pick from. How do I pick one? Like, I don't get it. I'll get to that video as well. But to broadly address the whole comment, let's get into that. Step one is knowing the rules. Doesn't matter if you start a game if you don't know how to play it. So get the core rulebook. This is the core rulebook for the current edition, 9th edition. With that being said, later this year, 2023, the fourth quarter or so, I think it's speculated that the 10th edition is going to come out. So just buy the starter set for 10th edition and you'll get the core rulebook out of that, or buy the core rulebook separately when it comes out. But for now, 9th edition, you can get the codex. You can probably get it online for free or for cheap, but I got the hard book from the Indominus box set and sold the contents for the cheapest I could to just get my money back. I didn't want to scalp anybody. With that said, get the core rulebook, learn the game itself, learn how to play the game, because you're not going to enjoy playing if you don't know what to do and everyone's correcting you. Other people may not be having fun playing you because you don't know what you're doing. So just learn the rules first off. Secondly, pick the army you want to play. Now, like I said, I'll make a separate video specifically on how to choose an army and what best fits you and what you best fit. But with that said, pick an army that you want. Ideally, the first step is choosing one that you like most of the model range for. Not just one or two things, but most of it, right? Because Warhammer, Games Workshop themselves, has been pretty good lately about balancing armies and making sure what's good isn't always better than everything else and trying to equal things out. But ideally, inside the codex itself, they're also balancing out things fairly frequently, so the thing that's bad isn't always bad. So you want to make sure you like everything because you might swap things out occasionally. But with that said, like the model range first. Because if you're paying money for something that's relatively expensive and you're painting it, you're building it, you're playing with it, you're investing a lot of time and money into this game. You want to make sure you like the look of what you got. So with that said, step one, find what army you like the look of the most. Secondly, if you're into lore or reading or any of this sci-fi fantasy part of the game, find what you think is interesting. Maybe you feel connected to a certain army over another based off what you've read about them. Maybe you really like the orcs because they're just crazy and love to fight and love the war. But maybe you like the Necrons because they want to redeem themselves. They lost what they had in humanity when they were somewhat living, and now they just want retribution against everyone. Or whatever else you might like. Like me personally, I kind of like Tyranids because I like eating non-stop and that's all they do. But with that said, pick the army you may like the lore of. Afterwards, when you're deeper in, you can finally fixate on what you actually like, depending on the play style, which I'll get more into in a separate video because that's a lot more in depth than what I'm trying to hit on now. So find the army you like to play. Step one, boom, got that out of the way. Let's go with Grey Knights. I play Grey Knights and Leagues of Votann. So let's go with Grey Knights. I like the Grey Knights. Okay, now what do I get for them? Well, thankfully for myself, there's not a large model range. There's like 6 kits to buy. I got my Dreadnought, Dread Knight, some of the HQs, Terminators, which is a 2-in-1 box. You can be Paladins or Terminators, or Strike Marines, which can be Strike Marines or Interceptors. So I don't really have a large line to pick from. So it's something more like Orcs, Tyranids, Space Marines especially. We have a lot of options. That might be a little harder. But one thing to do is, again, pick out what you like. Now, once you know the rules, you understand how you can build your army because you'll know you have, I need this amount of HQs and troops and so on and so forth, depending on what kind of detachment you want. Going from there, you buy the codex of the army you like and you read the codex similar to the rulebook. Now you know how to play the game, buy the codex, now you know how to play the army because you read everything in the codex. And you get a feel of what's maybe a little better or not because, oh, this guy has 4 more shots than this weapon option, or this guy has a 2+ armor save versus this one has a 4+. Like, you can see little things that maybe one looks better than the other, and if you still have a hard time finding out what's better, go onto forums or different YouTube videos like this explaining such and see what at the moment is a better option, right? And especially go to tournament lists, especially ones that win, of course. So if I go to a GT or look up a list of a GT and see that the second place winner was a Grey Knight player, I might look at his list and see what he brought. And I might look at a few more lists and see if they have a lot of models in common. Maybe they're different lists, but everyone has 2 Dread Knights. So I might want to buy 2 Dread Knights because apparently that's what's good at the moment. And key warning, Dread Knights are always good because they're cool. But I digress. Once you know what you like, you can invest into the models that you like and what's probably good at the time. Boom. Now you know the rules. You know the rules of your army. You have models for your army, hopefully, if you can save about $60,000. Kidding, but still. And you're ready to go. What next? Well, you got to buy your hobby supplies, which aren't that expensive. You can buy very, very cheap wire cutters like these, or slightly more expensive, but still not that expensive, better ones that are more comfortable and a little stronger. All in all, you'd be less than $10 for any wire cutter. Next, you want to get glue. Again, less than $10 for any glue. Me personally, I use extra thin cement by Tamiya. This is wonderful for any plastic model you buy. If you have a resin model, I recommend super glue. I recently bought magnets and got MaxiCure super glue by the Magnet Baron, and this super glue is working phenomenal for things requiring magnetization or any other metal or resin, but plastic, I go with this. So from now on, I'm probably only going to buy this and that super glue, both of which are inexpensive. This was on the $12 side, so kind of expensive, but I've built quite a lot with it, and it's this high still, so keep that in mind. But once you have your hobby supplies such as those, maybe an X-Acto blade, whatever kind you'd like. This one is a Husky one. I like it a lot because it's more comfortable for my hand, versus I have 2 that are like these that you can buy at Walmart or craft stores that are just metal, not as quite as comfortable. And something you don't need, but if you are interested in magnetization, you need magnets. Again, I got mine from Magnet Baron. Not a sponsor, quite obviously, because I have not that many subscribers to earn a sponsorship. And then you'll need as well as a drill. You see that drill bit there? Let me get that focused on you. That drill to drill in holes to get that magnets in place. And another unnecessary thing, but I find useful, especially for modifications and like switching around parts that aren't meant to be certain places, file. This is just a normal old file that I'll file down the plastic so I can get a flat surface to glue and put better. Now you got your hobby supplies. Put all your models together. Follow the instructions that come in the booklets. For instance, is the booklet that came with my Dread Knight. You just follow step by step. It's really not that hard. You ever done Legos? Great. This is Legos, but with a purpose. After that, you want to buy paint. You can buy cheap paint, expensive paint, any kind of paint. You can pay someone else to paint and not have to buy paint. Paint, paint, paint. All I gotta say. I like painting. I actually, no, that's a lie. I hate painting, but I'm half decent, so I like being good at stuff. There's that. But if you can afford to pay someone else to paint and you don't want to paint, there you go. But it's also another side of the hobby that some people do. Some people have been playing this game for decades, and paint nonstop, and have never played a game in their life because they like the painting aspect, which you can do, but I encourage you to play because it's fun. But that being said, you paint up the models however you like. If you want hot pink and neon yellow, by all means, go do it. That kind of sounds like a cool paint scheme, not I see. But that being said, you can follow any paint scheme you want. You can follow one out of the booklets. You can follow your own that you create or someone else that puts it online that you like. Do whatever you like. Once you have your models painted up, and you don't have to paint them, but if you would go into tournaments, usually you have to have them painted with at least 3 colors, if that's still a thing. It was before. And once you have your models painted, go play a game. You can test play with friends or your casual game at the local game store and unpainted, and go play with your friends and learn the game. To recap, you now know the rules. You know what army you're playing. You know the rules for your army. You have models that are ready to go for your army, and the last step is to play. So go out and play. Repetition is key. Everyone gets better, usually, with repetition, and that goes for all things in life. So with that said, go get your reps in and get better at the game. You'll get better just off of that. But you want to get even better at the game. Here's what you do. After the game ends, you stop and stare at the board, think about it in your head and what went wrong and what went right, and see if you think, oh, maybe if I didn't advance those units, they wouldn't have been shot off the board. Maybe if I focused on that unit rather than his HQ over there, the game might have went a little better in my favor. So you do that after every game, you get a little bit more insight. But don't just stop there. Ask your opponent what you did wrong or what they think that you could have done better. You might ask your opponent, hey, what do you think I could have done different to better improve my game? Your opponent might have been, oh, I saw that you left your model slightly outside of the cover, and I took advantage of that and shot them down knowing you wouldn't get a cover save. You may have not known that my model had this weapon or this psychic power because you didn't ask, and so you kind of ignored it, and then on my turn I was able to use it instead of it dying on your turn. Or something along those lines. They might give you better advice because they can see it from their own perspective. Another way to improve your game is to not even worry about your own game. Go be an unbiased third party and watch someone else play a game. Watching as a third person and looking at both sides, you can see, oh, maybe he did this because of that. Or if they're playing a relaxed game, you can interrupt them by like, hey, why'd you choose to do this? Or why'd you choose to do that? Or after the game, you can do that if they don't want to talk during the game. And lastly, you can go and watch YouTube videos or read forums online about better players and their experiences and what they choose to do, and go on from there. So as a final recap, you learned the rules, you picked an army, you learned the rules for that army, you bought your models, got them ready to go to play, you decided to go and play, and from then on, you're only improving, ideally, and getting better over time. If you want any more in-depth questioning about any of the things I've said, leave a comment down below and I'll gladly get to them as fast as I can. Thank you and see you next time.